welcome to another video. Just wanted to, since it's that time of year, wanted to show you kind of the outdoor projects I'm working on. This is a front flower bed that I recently transplanted some grass over there because it wasn't doing so hot in one spot, so we'll see how it does over here. But I've got some astilbe that's growing in, got some hostas, columbines, some annuals intermixed in there to give it a little bit of color. But this is actually, it's pretty thick pieces of mulch. Usually it's not this thick, but I just wanted to show you the difference between, mulching a fresh batch of mulch versus last year's mulch. So you can see it looks kind of thinned out. You can see some of the dirt where we planted some of the annuals this year, and then with some fresh mulch. Now some people might think you need to put a weed barrier down, and if you look over here at this mulch, there's some bare dirt spots and just the mulch, but I don't use any weed barrier whatsoever. And the reason is because many times your weed barrier will get crumpled up, you'll get wrinkles in it, the wind will kick up and just leave, instead of this bare dirt, you'll see all that weed fabric. And honestly, it doesn't really do much to stop weeds from growing, because typically you put something like this over your weed barrier, or you might put rocks or bark. Dust and dirt and weeds can still grow in that stuff, so you still end up having to deal with weeds either way. But if you put a good thick layer of mulch on top, usually a couple of inches will do, you're going to keep the weeds down pretty much the whole year. I'll show you the kind that I use most of the time. This you just get from Home Depot. You can get similar stuff from Lowe's or any other type of store like that. But this stuff, if you wait for it to go on sale, it's usually $2, $2.50. So 4 bags for $10. This little section only took me 2 bags. And so if you look over here, this is probably going to take 4 or 5 bags. It's pretty cheap stuff, and it just keeps the weeds out. We kind of started with the front. If you go to the back, we just cleaned out the old leaves from this. They've got a lot of rocks in here, lava rocks. I'm not a big fan of those, so probably pull them out. But I'll show you what the other flower bed looks like in the front, and then after we mulch this, how much of an improvement it'll be. Okay, so what I do is I just open up a bag and I make little piles where I don't have any flowers or plants. And then the star of the show, one of my kids here, is going to start to spread it out. And he just puts on some gloves. You want to avoid splinters, so go ahead and start spreading it out. And like I said, you just want to, nothing hard about it, but you want to give it a nice inch or two. When you get around plants that have, like this grass, you want to kind of lift the grass out of the way.
Got it?
Yeah, bring it all around. You don't have to do it super fast or anything. You want to get it in between all the parts of, like these hostas here. And you can already tell how much of a difference it's making.
You want on the stepping stones?
Yeah, keep spreading out where these other mounds are. You know, one other benefit that I didn't talk about, you know, some people wonder why you use mulch versus rock or something like that. Well, mulch is a great way to retain the moisture so that you don't have to water as much. Or if you water on a hot day, it holds that moisture in a lot longer. Again, the thicker the layer of mulch, the more it's gonna keep that water retained in there, even if it gets hot outside. Usually what I do is I just run the back of a leaf rake over it to level it out once I've got it spread out. So we'll take a look at, we'll finish up this little section. Probably leave this section for now. And go do that bare section that I showed you earlier. Make sure you have a happy Buddha somewhere in your flower garden. Gives you good luck. Okay, so this is on the side. It's got a lot of just bare dirt that we just cleaned up. And we're just going to do this little section here because we're going to be removing, there's a lot of black lava rock we're going to be removing.
I actually do not know that.
For this section we're going to be okay, so go ahead and start spreading it out.
Okay.
There's some rocks that we want to keep, like this rock, and there's already some ground cover growing.
Do you want this covered at all?
No,
Not at all.
I
Okay.
want the rocks to show. Over here we
It's
got
gonna be
another
a very
rock.
thick layer of mulch here, but that doesn't matter quite as much since it's not going to be showcased too much.
So you just want to spread it the same way. And again, all this is really doing is helping to keep the weeds down,
And maintain.
but also giving you some of that contrast. And you can see
You want to keep this rock?
this ground cover pops a lot more in color than this ground cover that just kind of blends in with the dirt and everything.
This looks really nice. I like this.
So again, if you do this once a year, you might be able to get away with it once every other year. But really you want to keep the mulch on there pretty thick so that it helps prevent the weeds, helps retain the moisture, and it just makes your yard look really nice. If this video was helpful, what do you need to do, Jacob?
Like, subscribe, and just do that stuff.
Okay, subscribe, and we'll do some more. Leave a comment if you agree, disagree with our methodology here. But ultimately, I've tried both ways with the weed fabric and other types of, like thick bark. I've seen rubber bark from recycled tires. It all looks a little bit ridiculous to me compared to this stuff. I really like the way this looks, and it's really inexpensive. Again, this section right here probably cost $5. This little section here was only, a bag and a half, so it was like $7.50. So it's pretty cheap to just brighten up your landscaping a little bit and make it look fresh and clean.